everyone, and welcome back to a brand new Pokemon TCG video. Today guys, we're going to be taking a look at the Trevenant EX. Right off the bat I wanted to say that he's not particularly the greatest Pokemon, but I have put him in a deck which I think is quite competitive. It has been performing rather quite well. I've been pretty impressed with it, so I felt like I would showcase it with you guys. This Trevenant EX does have a lot of support from our other Pokemon, so I wouldn't necessarily say that he's a very solid EX Pokemon on his own, but again, we are trying to make him work. So depending on the situation, guys, we're going to be either using the Dark Force attack, preventing our opponent's active Pokemon from being able to retreat, or we're going to be using the Wood Blast attack in case we want to dish out some additional types of damage. So Wood Blast, not the greatest attack, again, only deals out 50 damage with an additional 20 damage per grass energy that we actually do have attached to our Trevenant EX. However, it does seem to work relatively quite well with our Verzian EX. Verzian EX's Verdant Wind ability is first of all going to prevent any of our Pokemon that have any grass type energies attached to them from being affected by special conditions. Very solid ability, and his Emerald Slash attack will allow us to speed up the rate of energy attachment from our deck to our bench Pokemon. So ideally, we want to get a Verzian EX out nice and early, try to power up our bench Pokemon, and then hit for some massive damage using our Trevenant EX. That's sort of the main idea, but of course, we've optimized this deck to be quite annoying, and I've had a lot of rage quits with this deck. Its performance has also been rather impressive, so I felt like it was ready to showcase to you guys. So let's take a look at some of the annoying sorts of Pokemon that we are running, guys. So first of all, we are running the Seismitoad EX, but as annoying as he actually is, he's not going to really be involved much in this deck. The only reason that I actually have included him was to counter our opponent's fire-type Pokemon, because of course our grass-type Pokemon are extremely susceptible to fire-type Pokemon, so Seismitoad EX is going to help us out with respects to that front. But aside from that, Seismitoad EX is probably not really going to be seeing a lot of action. Our deck doesn't really have an emphasis on him, but he's there just in case, again, we do need to use him from time to time. Some of the annoying Pokemon that we are running, guys, is we are going to be running a Munna. So with its long distance ability, we get to flip a coin. If we get heads, we put our opponent's active Pokemon to sleep. If we flip tails, we put our own Pokemon to sleep. Now normally this would be a pretty double-edged sword type of effect. However, since we are running our Verzian EX, our Pokemon are actually not going to be affected by the long distance hypnosis. So make no mistake, guys, Munna is a very devastating little Pokemon. Doesn't look like it can dish out a lot, but I felt like the vast majority of games that I've had actually involving with respects to rage quits was thanks to our Munna. And of course, we are running a lot of other annoying cards as well. So we are going to be running a total of 4 Crushing Hammers. Hopefully we get those heads and do discard our opponent's energy attachments to their Pokemon, and then we can repeatedly put them to sleep using our Munna as well. If that really weren't enough, we're also going to be running some Hypnotoxic Lasers. We're going to be using this in combination with our Verbank City Gym, so in case our Munna's special ability does fail, our Hypnotoxic Laser will hopefully put them to sleep. And again, we still want to increase the annoyance of our deck, so we are also going to be running some Enhanced Hammers just to get rid of our opponent's special energies. So ideally, we want to prevent them from actually dishing out any damage to us, poisoning them, and then just repeatedly hitting them with our Trevenant EX. Again, as I was mentioning earlier, we're going to be using our Trevenant EX's Dark Forest or Wood Blast attack depending on the situation. So if we happen to have an opponent's Pokemon that, for example, needs a lot of energies to actually get going, we're probably going to be using our Dark Forest attack because our opponent's Pokemon will not be able to retreat, and then hopefully they'll die due to the poison damage and in between turns, so then we can start pounding away at our opponent's next Pokemon before they actually have a chance to do anything to us. I mean, again, it really sort of depends. Wood Blast, again, can be a pretty solid attack, especially with this sped up rate of energy attachments using our Verzian EX. And the last Pokemon that we're actually running, guys, is going to be the Shaman EX. He's only going to come in handy later on into the game. We're going to be using his Revenge Blast attack in case we are at a disadvantage. If our opponent has taken, for example, 4 prize cards, for a mere 2 energies, we can easily dish out 150 damage. Our opponent has taken 5 prize cards, then we can dish out 180 damage. Pretty solid Pokemon. Not going to be really all that useful early on into the game, but towards the end of the game, he can definitely save us. Especially if we do have a massive disadvantage, guys. So that's pretty much all the Pokemon that we are running. So let's take a look at some of the item cards that we have going on here as well, guys. So we're actually going to be running a single dowsing machine as our ace spec card. This is just because our deck has a very heavy emphasis on our item type cards, such as our Hypnotoxic Laser, Hammers, things like that. So Hypnotoxic Laser is going, our dowsing machine is going to allow us to recycle those types of item cards and just put them to use all over again. So ultimately, this is the ace spec card that I have decided to run in our deck, guys. We're also going to be running a single Sterling Megaphone again. This is just in case we come across a Garbodor, but Garbodor is pretty much non-existent at this point. I don't think I've seen him a single time, at least with respects to me being paired up against random opponents. So I feel like it's not really a Pokemon that you guys are going to be coming across a lot. Ever since the Primal Clash set release, there's been sort of less and less emphasis on abilities, and Garbodor just doesn't seem to be all that viable of a Pokemon anymore. However, we're still going to include a Starling Megaphone just in case, and we can also get rid of some useful sorts of tool attachments to our opponent's active Pokemon and their bench Pokemon as well. Some other cards that we're running as well, guys. You guys know the deal with these cards. We're going to be running 2 Switches, 3 Ultra Balls, 2 VS Seekers, standard item cards that should be run in pretty much every deck. We're going to be running 2 Colress, 2 Lysanders, 4 Junipers, a Skyla, and a Teammates. We're also going to be running 2 Muscle Bands. You guys know the deal with this card as well. And we're running a total of 12 energies in total, 10 of them being grass energies and 2 of them being double colorless energies. Double colorless energies are actually to be used with our Seismitoad EX, and in most cases, I mean, in case we do actually need to get him going in a single turn. And also using our Wood Blast attack too. I mean, if we happen to not actually be able to use our Trevenant EX for that energy acceleration, and we have a grass energy attached to Trevenant EX, we can just go right ahead and latch on a double colorless energy to him, and then we can start attacking with our Wood Blast attack. So that's pretty much the basic deck breakdown, guys. So let's actually go and see this bad boy in action. Sorry, let me just save that first. And again, let's go right ahead and see this bad boy in action. Again, it's had a relatively good performance right now. So I'm pretty impressed with it, and I do think that it does have competitive potential. However, I wouldn't necessarily say that it is better than the typical Verzian EX Genesect EX type of combination that we are used to seeing. I mean, Verzian EX Genesect EX seem to be a very, very powerful sort of combination. Just have a lot of synergy together. I don't think we can necessarily make up for that. So it looks like we are actually starting off with a Seismitoad EX, which is great actually because our opponent does have a fire type Pokemon. Otherwise, he would have been able to dish out double the damage to our grass type Pokemon. So I'm actually going to use the Skyla to grab out a Hypnotoxic Laser, and then hopefully we'll be able to get rid of that Reshiram on our next turn. So let's go right ahead and use the Hypnotoxic Laser. Hope for a head. And look, unfortunately we get a Tails, but that's okay. We'll still be able to get rid of our opponent's Reshiram on our next turn using our Quaking Punch attack if he actually can't retreat it or anything like that. And I'm probably going to be using the N as well, guys, just so that we can hopefully get some bench Pokemon going. Our opponent is lucky though in having had the Pokemon Fan Club. I mean, otherwise there's the possibility that he may have died. It looks like our opponent is actually running a Fairy type deck. A little bit unusual to actually include the Reshiram. Haven't really seen that all that often. Again, our opponent is going to Starling Megaphone as well, but if he actually can't get rid of our Stadium card, which looks like he can't, we're still going to be able to get rid of that Reshiram. So let's go and use the Crushing Hammer, hope for a head. Unfortunately, we get another tail, so I'm going to go and use the N for some new cards at hand, and then we're going to go and item lock our opponent. So let's go and lay down the Trevenant EX. I'm actually not going to place down the Shaman EX, guys, because again, we only want to use him later on in the game. Let's see if we can get another head, and unfortunately, it looks like we keep getting tails. For the time being. So let's go and attach a Grass Energy to our Trevenant EX and knock out that Reshiram to draw our first prize card. Again, I don't really want that energy acceleration going, but it looks like it is unfortunately going to start. Hopefully our opponent can't get too many bench Pokemon, because I'm thinking he may actually be running a Mega Gardevoir EX deck. Those seem to have been quite popular right now. Work very, very well in combination with these Xerneas. And unfortunately, the energy acceleration has started. So our Crushing Hammers, we've already flipped 2 tails with them as well. So I don't know how things are going to go from here on out. So I'm actually going to go and use the Ultra Ball to get rid of our Starling Megaphone and a Lysander for now, to actually grab out a Verzian EX. Hopefully we can grab out our Muna as well so that we can repeatedly put our opponent's Pokemon to sleep. So let's go and place him down, and then I'm going to go and attach a Grass Energy to our Verzian EX and use the N. Hope that we get something useful. Okay, so we do have a Hammer. Might as well use it. Hopefully we get a Heads, guys. We're getting extremely unlucky, and looks like we do this time around. So that's nice. I'm gonna go and get rid of an energy attached to our opponent's Xerneas, just so he doesn't actually dish out that damage to our Seismitoad EX. Let's use the Hypnotoxic Laser, and luckily we've managed to get a Heads and Quicking Punch our opponent's Xerneas, and looks like he got a Tail. So we're getting a little bit luckier with respects to our coin flips right now, and we have actually item locked our opponent as well. Of course, Seismitoad EX, you guys know what he's capable of and just how annoying he is. Just a nice type of fitting Pokemon with respects to our deck. And as you guys can see, that Reshiram could have spelled trouble for us, but luckily that Seismitoad EX was able to vanquish that threat nice and early. So let's see what our opponent is actually going to grab out. I'm assuming it would be a Gardevoir EX and possibly another Spritzy or a Florges EX, something like that. Just thinking, okay, it looks like one is a Spritzy and another one is a Suicune. Okay, so that Suicune, we're actually not running any non-EX Pokemon in our deck, so we pretty much have to rely on our lasers and things like that, actually dealing with Pokemon like that. So I'm actually going to go and attach the Grass Energy to our Trevenant EX for now. Not going to use the Juniper. I don't want to discard that Grass Energy because we're not running all that many. And not actually going to use the VS Seeker just yet. I may use it on our next turn to actually grab out a Skyla and then poison our opponent's Suicune. But for now, let's go and Quaking Punch and then draw onto another one of our prize cards. Our Trevenant EX is starting to get ready to use his Wood Blast attack, so hopefully we'll be able to kick him into high gear and start dealing out a lot of damage. Because again, our Seismitoad EX is only dishing out 30 damage at the moment, and again, our deck isn't necessarily really centered around him per se. Okay, so it looks like our opponent is going to use the triple draw attack. So let's go and attach another Grass Energy to our Trevenant EX and lay down a Verzian EX. I'm actually going to go and use the Hypnotoxic Laser for the time being, and looks like we are going to get the Heads. I mean, okay, our opponent is actually going to quit, so we will be testing out this deck again, just because you guys did not actually see our Trevenant EX in action just yet. So let's go right ahead and find ourselves another opponent. Hopefully we can see the Muna come out in action as well, because Muna is a tremendous addition to our deck. Really an annoying little guy. Hopefully we actually don't start off with him though, because he does have two stars as his retreat cost, which is a little bit costly for such a weak Pokemon. I mean, a 60 HP Pokemon, a pretty massive retreat cost in my opinion. So let's go and lay down the Verzian EX for now. And I'm not going to lay down again our Shaman EX because I'm hoping that we can possibly use him later on in case we actually do need to. Okay, so no energies, but a Seismitoad EX deck seems to be what our opponent is running. So, okay, so I'm actually going to go and use the Ultra Ball, guys, to give up a Shaman EX. Unfortunately, I will be actually discarding him, and one of our switches as well, to actually grab out one of our Munas. We don't actually have any energies right now, but Muna is a very solid Seismitoad EX counter as well, guys, just because, I mean, if our opponent does try to item lock us, Muna could potentially put our opponent's Pokemon to sleep, and then our opponent would actually not be able to repeatedly item lock us, allowing us to use our items again. Looks like, unfortunately, we have flipped the tails because we do not have any of our Grass Energies. We have put our own Verzian EX to sleep. So let's go and lure out that Kyurem for the time being, and with that, we're going to go on in our turn. I don't want to get item locked just yet, guys. We do have the teammates in case one of our Pokemon do happen to get knocked out as well. But I'm really hoping for another supporter type card, just so that we can actually get the energy acceleration going. I feel like our deck is actually a very, very potent Seismitoad EX counter, by the way, guys. So let's go and use the Crushing Hammer, and looks like we get a Tails. Getting pretty unlucky with these flips, actually. And use the Long Distance Hypnosis, another Tails. Not really sure what's going on. Again, our Muna can be a very sort of double-edged sword type Pokemon if we actually do not happen to have our Grass Energies, which in this case we unfortunately don't. Okay, so finally we have gotten our first Grass Energy, so let's go and attach it to our Verzian EX. Now Muna will no longer be putting our own Pokemon to sleep, so that's nice. Our opponent's Kyurem is asleep, but unfortunately we still can't attack. Hoping that we do happen to get one of our draw supporter type cards, guys, and hopefully we can start loading up our Pokemon. Our opponent gets the heads, unfortunately, with that Crushing Hammer. So it's going to take a bit of time for us to actually get our deck going. So let's go and end our turn for the time being. Again, though, our deck is a very potent anti-Seismitoad EX counter because we are running the Verzian EX, so we're pretty much immune to all of our Pokemon. All of our opponents. Hypnotoxic lasers, things like that. So let's go and use the colors. I'm not gonna lay down Verbank City Gym just yet because our opponent can make use of that as well. So let's go and use the colors and hope that we get something better. We do have the end, so that's kind of nice. Let's go and use our long distance hypnosis. Luckily, we have managed to get the heads again, just in case that Kyurem would be able to attack. And it looks like he wakes up as well. So hopefully with our next end, we can actually get our deck going. So our opponent is going to retreat his Kyurem, and a Seismitoad EX is going to come out. I'm assuming our opponent has a double colorless energy and is probably going to item lock us. Okay, so it looks like I was wrong, but he did this. Okay, so he's going to switch 2 times for some reason, you know, because I mean, switching once just was not enough. So let's go and use our end, guys. And luckily, we have just drawn onto a grass energy. So let's hopefully put our opponent's Pokemon to sleep. We get details, but that's okay. That's not too detrimental for us. Probably going to have to use the Colress on our next turn. Again, we're getting pretty unlucky with respects to our draws. And our opponent luckily has flipped a tails as well. So that's kind of nice. And he's going to repeatedly item lock us until we can hopefully put him to sleep. So let's go and use the Muna first, and then I'll be using our Colress. Another Tails, guys. Not really sure what's going on, but Muna is usually a little bit more of a reliable Pokemon than that. But luckily our Verzian EX will be able to hit that Seismitoad EX for 100 damage, and we'll be able to load up the Seismitoad EX on our bench as well. So let's go and attach 2 grass energies to him, and with that we are going to end our turn. We also have the switch, but again, we can't really make use of it just yet because our opponent is using his Quaking Punches and we are item locked for the time being. Okay, so Rough Seas can actually be used by us to a certain extent as well because we do have the Seismitoad EX. Again, just hoping that we actually get a good supporter type card in our hand this turn, guys. I mean, a Colress would have come in handy now, but unfortunately we got them early. And we have just used both of them. I'm hoping for a Juniper or another N or something. Again, because we do want to get our Trevenant EX line set up and ready to go. So assuming our opponent is going to use the Quaking Punch attack again, hopefully our Muna will be able to put him to sleep on our next turn so that we can actually start using our item cards as well, such as our Hypnotoxic Laser. So let's go and use the Long Distance Hypnosis, and we do get the heads. Hopefully our opponent gets the tails, and then his Seismitoad EX is unable to do anything. I'm not actually going to grab out any of our grass energies for now. I mean, there would be absolutely no point. Our Seismitoad EX is fully loaded, and I don't want to waste our energies to our Muna. So our opponent is going to use the Crushing Hammer and get the heads. Okay, so it looks like he's actually going to discard an energy from our Verzian EX, but that's okay. We can still have a Toxic Laser, our opponent's Seismitoad EX, so we should actually no, the Rough Seas may just prevent us from drawing onto any of our prize cards. Okay, so we're actually going to item lock our opponent now by bringing out our own Seismitoad EX, guys, because I'm going to switch into him, and then we're going to go and Hypnotoxic Laser. So I mean, now our opponent is actually going to get a taste of his own medicine. So let's go and Hypnotoxic Laser him, and then hit our opponent's Seismitoad EX for 30 damage and draw onto 2 of our prize cards. Hoping we do get the Trevenant EX. Okay, looks like we have gotten it. So hopefully we'll actually be able to get him set up and ready to go. Again, because you guys have not seen him in action yet. My apologies about that, guys. Looks like the matchups seem to be just preventing us from actually using our Pokemon to the extent that we would actually like to. And our opponent's Kyurem is going to use the Blizzard Burn attack, hit us for 120 damage, but luckily we can heal ourselves a little bit thanks to our opponent's Stadium card, so let's go and do that. Gonna lay down a Trevenant EX and another Seismitoad EX. Let's use our Muna's ability, hope for a heads. Unfortunately we got a tails, but luckily we're not really feeling any recoil with respects to that. Let's attach a Muscle Band to our Seismitoad EX and dish out 50 damage to our opponent's Kyurem. Luckily he will not be able to use his Blizzard Burn attack again. He's probably going to have to retreat and bring out his Seismitoad EX. Okay, so it looks like he's going to get rid of our Muscle Band as well, but that's okay. That's whatever damage that Seismitoad EX does happen to actually dish out to us, we can heal ourselves again using the Rough Seas Stadium card. So hopefully our Trevenant EX will be able to get set up and ready to go. So let's go and use the Rough Seas first. Going to use our Muna's ability before we actually do use the N. And we get a Tails again, getting pretty unlucky with the flips. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to use the N anyways. I do want to get some energy attachments going to our bench Pokemon, and that will help our opponent as well, though, because he does have 6 cards, but I feel like it's the right decision to make right now. So let's go and use the N. Okay, a Grass Energy. Let's go and attach that to our Trevenant EX, and then we will be able to start using our Dark Forest attack. So let's go and use the Quaking Punch attack once again, and hopefully our Muna can put our opponent's Pokemon to sleep. Then we can actually start using our hammers and our dowsing machine, things like that. Okay, it looks like we are actually facing a Garbodor type deck. I have actually discarded our, no, sorry, I thought I had discarded our Starling Megaphone. So it looks like our Starling Megaphone may actually come in handy, and our opponent is going to retreat his Seismitoad EX and perform the knockout on our Pokemon. So let's actually go and bring out our Trevenant EX. Okay, so first of all, we're going to go and use the Crushing Hammer to get rid of that annoying attachment. I'm going to go and use the Hypnotoxic Laser as well on our opponent's Kyurem. Let's go and lay down a Virizion EX and attach a Grass Energy to our Trevenant EX. Hopefully we can start using the Wood Blast attack from here on out and then perform those massive one-hit knockouts on our opponent's Seismitoad EX. Let's go and use the N as well, guys, and lower the number of cards. Okay, awesome. So we do have the Starling Megaphone. Not going to play it just yet, in case that Garbodor does happen to get a tool attachment to him. So let's go and use the Dark Force attack. Again, our opponent's Pokemon cannot actually retreat, so his Kyurem, even if it was to actually wake up, would not have actually been able to do anything, unless our opponent happened to have a switch or something like that in his hand. And our opponent's getting pretty lucky with his Crushing Hammers, but luckily we did have enough energy to continuously be able to use our Dark Forest attack. So let's see how things go. Again, it looks like we have a pretty favorable matchup with respects to our opponent's Pokemon. I mean, he's running the Seismitoad EX, weak to our Grass-type Pokemon, so we'll easily be able to dish out double the amount of damage to his respective Pokemon. So let's see what our opponent is actually doing. Again, if he doesn't have the switch, he can't really do anything, and his Kyurem, his Kyurem is going to die on our opponent's next turn. I guess our opponent is just thinking about what he should actually do. Again, our Muna is a pretty menacing Pokemon, and I'm assuming our opponent is actually not going to bring out his Seismitoad EXs anymore, because we are able to dish out double the amount of damage to him. So as long as we're not item locked, our Starling Megaphone is going to come in handy with respects to getting rid of that tool type attachment to our opponent's Garbodor. Again, this is actually the first Garbodor I've seen in a long time, and I guess our opponent is actually going to quit. You guys have seen this deck a bit in action, but I feel like we should go right ahead and do one more battle, just so you guys get a bit of a clear idea. My apologies, guys, if this video is starting to get a little bit long for you guys, but I mean, of course, I feel like a lot of you guys would nonetheless appreciate the fact that we are using our Trevenant EX and a lot more battles, so you guys can see just how good of a Pokemon it may just be. So, okay, so it looks like we are going to go first. Our opponent is using Water-type Pokemon as well right now, which seem to be very, very popular, so I feel like the Trevenant EX deck can be quite potent, just with respects to what types of decks we are seeing. So, I guess our opponent is probably running an Empoleon, Dusknoir, Miltank deck. A pretty potent deck. I feel like it has gained a little bit of power with respects to the Primal Clash set release. Cards like the, Crushing Waves, things like that. A Weakness Policy, not really going to come in handy. Okay, so our opponent actually has a Froakie deck. Sorry, the last evolution of Froakie. Just can't wrap off my head what exactly his name was. Greninja. Yeah, there we go. I think it would have been actually smarter if our opponent had attached the Weakness Policy to his Froakie instead, had it actually come out for action, because I could Lysander it out, and our opponent wouldn't really be able to do anything. Our opponent's deck, I definitely would say, has a great reliance on his Froakie actually being evolved into the Greninja. So I'm actually going to Lysander him out, and then our opponent won't really be able to do much damage using his Miltanks with the Powerful Friends attack. Again, because he does need those Stage 3 Pokemon to be able to dish out those massive amounts of damage. So let's see what our opponent is actually looking for. Possibly an Energy, possibly a Rare Candy, something like that. Okay, so he actually has 2 Froakies. Not exactly too happy to see those guys. I will attach a Grass Energy to our Trevenant EX. I'm actually not going to use our Juniper. I mean, we have a massive number of hammers in our hand, and I don't know if Lysander would be the proper move to do anymore, because our opponent does happen to have 2 of his Froakies, but for now we're just going to go and attack using our Dark Force attack, so our opponent's Miltank will not be able to retreat. And if our opponent does actually happen to bring out one of his Greninjas, that's when I'm actually going to go and Lysander them, just so that I can get rid of that Greninja, as opposed to the Miltank, because I do want to get rid of that threat. Again, our opponent's Miltanks can't dish out a lot of damage without that Greninja. Looks like that Greninja is coming out, so we will be Lysandering him out, guys. And our opponent does not seem to actually be able to draw onto any of his energies for the time being. Looks like that's his first energy. That's okay though, we do have the Crushing Hammers, and our opponent is also going to discard some energies as well, just to use his Greninja's ability, but doesn't really look like he's getting a lot. Okay, so he happens to have another Greninja in his hand, and okay, so now using a Lysander may not be the best option, but I think we may just go for it. So first, let's go and use the Crushing Hammers. Okay, so we have just gotten rid of the energy attachment to our opponent's Miltank. We do need another energy to actually be able to knock out our opponent's Miltank. So let's go and attach the Muscle Band for him right now. I'm actually going to go and use the Juniper. I mean, a Colress for 3 cards, chances are we're probably not going to get an energy. So let's actually go and use our Professor Juniper. Okay, and it looks like we have drawn onto the Muna as well. Let's go and attach a Grass energy to our Trevenant EX. And I could use the Ultra Ball to actually get rid of our Starling Megaphone and the Colress, which I think is what I'm going to do, because we do happen to have a Juniper which I can use next turn. So let's go and actually grab out our Verzian EX, and then we can actually start putting our opponent's Pokemon to sleep as well, which isn't really necessary in this turn because we will be able to knock out our opponent's Miltank nonetheless. So let's go and use the Wood Blast attack and draw our first prize card. Don't think our opponent will be able to knock us out unless he happens to draw onto an energy. Okay, so an energy and 2 energies, or an energy and a Muscle Band. I mean, aside from that, our opponent probably won't be able to knock us out. Okay, so it looks like he is going to use the Dive Ball. That Greninja line can be relatively menacing, because for each of those Greninjas, our opponent can repeatedly discard water energies from his hand, and then repeatedly dish out 30 damage to any of our Pokemon. So you can snipe our bench Pokemon as well. Can be a bit troubling. Looks like he's going to try. He will be knocking out our Trevenant EX on his turn. So let's actually go and bring out our Verzian EX for now. Our opponent's going to draw into 2 prize cards, so I'm probably going to be using the N. So let's go and actually attach a Grass energy to our Verzian EX. Hypnotoxic Laser, our opponent's Miltank. Looks like we've just got the details, but that's okay. Let's see if our Muna can hopefully get the heads. And this is why the synergy between Muna is nice. I really would not have wanted to waste another one of our Hypnotoxic Lasers. Let's actually go and use the N. I don't want to discard any of our other cards, and hopefully we can get some bench Pokemon. No, it doesn't look like we are getting any, but that's okay. Let's go and attach the Muscle Band to our Verzian EX, as well as a Verbank City Gem, so our opponent's Miltank can take a little bit of extra damage, and with that we are going to go and end our turn. Looks like our opponent is going to stay asleep, which is ideally, of course, what we want, because we are repeatedly trying to put them to sleep with respect to our Munas and our Hypnotoxic Lasers, just so that we can dish out a whole lot of damage without really us feeling the brunt of any effects. So I'm probably going to be using the VS Seeker on our turn, guys, to actually grab out a Sycamore, or possibly a Juniper, possibly a Colress if we do happen to get a bench Pokemon, because I'd rather not give up our Verbank City Gem if we don't have to. Our opponent has a full line of Greninjas set up, so quite a bit of a menacing Pokemon, and if he happens to have the superior energy retrieval, he can repeatedly give up energy cards from his hand, and it looks like that is what is going to happen, guys. Luckily, our opponent only has 2 water energies in his discard pile, though, so not too menacing, but he will be able to start piling up that damage to our Pokemon. So let's see if he's actually going to, so looks like he is actually going to go after the Muna. Again, pretty menacing Pokemon. I don't necessarily blame him. I think that would have been the smarter option as well, as opposed to targeting our Verzian EX. And looks like our opponent only has 3 prize cards remaining, so I may actually use the N on our turn to reduce the number of cards in our opponent's hand. Okay, no, he only has 3 cards in his hand as well, so I don't know. We'll see how things go. I do want to get one of our bench Pokemons as well. We have a total of 5 prize cards remaining, though, so things could actually turn around with respect to our opponent's favor. That Shaman EX, I could lay him down. Our opponent has drawn onto 2 prize cards. Could be a pretty solid Pokemon at this point, but with all those Greninjas, I don't think it's worth taking the chance. So let's go and attach another Grass energy to our Verzian EX, and I'm actually going to go and use the Juniper. Just worried that we could actually get sniped from our bench through our Shaman EX. Could actually be more of a detrimental Pokemon at this point. So let's use the Juniper, and it looks like we're going to get a Seismitoad EX and also an Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball is nice, so let's actually use it to give up our Juniper and the teammates as well, because we do have the VS Seeker, so we could absolutely draw out onto any of our discarded supporter cards using our VS Seeker, so shouldn't be too big of an issue. And let's grab out one of our Trevenant EXs. Let's lay him down into our bench and then knock out our opponent's Miltank and attach 2 grass energies to our Trevenant EX. So now our Trevenant EX can actually dish out a lot of damage, 1 more energy, and he will be able to start using his Wood Blast attack. I mean, at this point, there's really no point in Lysandering out those Greninjas, just because our opponent has 3 of them, and I think getting rid of the Miltanks would be a bigger priority. He is one of the Pokemon that is able to dish out a lot of damage to us. Our Trevenant EX is probably going to come out on our next turn, just because he could perform those one-hit knockouts on our opponent's Miltanks. So chances are we are going to go and retreat our Verzini EX, hoping that he lives. If our Verzini EX does happen to live, we will be retreating him and bringing out our Trevenant EX to start dishing out some damage. Okay, looks like our opponent is going to try and target our Trevenant EX nice and early, but he actually will not be able to get rid of our Verzini EX. So let's actually go and retreat him to bring out our Trevenant EX. Going to go and attach a grass energy to him. Just taking a look at our opponent's discard pile, he may actually deck out. I mean, he only has 5 cards remaining in his deck. I'm not sure whether or not he actually will. Of course, the Crushing Hammer is sort of useless at this point, just because we can't. Just because we are going to get rid of that Miltank anyways. Do I actually have a Skyla in our discard pile? Looks like I don't, but and none of our Pokemon did actually get knocked out, so I'm actually not going to use the VS Seeker just yet. Going to be saving it for a teammate in case we need that later on. So let's go and use the Wood Blast attack, knock out that Miltank, and then draw onto one of our prize cards. Let's see what cards our opponent has left in his deck. Will he be able to win? I'm not really sure. He's actually going to use the end, so I'm assuming our opponent is starting to run out of water energies and things like that as well. So his deck is absolutely starting to slow down, so we will be able to knock out that Miltank as well. Not really sure if our opponent can make a comeback anymore. Not going to use the end, don't want to help out our opponent, so let's just go and use the Wood Blast attack, knock out our opponent's Miltank, and then draw onto one of our prize cards. Looks like we've just grabbed onto another one of our Seismitoad EX. That Greninja is unfortunately going to die due to the grass weakness. So our opponent should have actually saved that weakness policies for one of his Greninjas instead. Could have at least survived another attack. And he is trying to knock out our Verzini EX. But again, I don't really think our opponent can win anymore. So let's actually go and lay down another Verzini EX. Just in case our opponent happens to pull something out of nowhere. And then let's go and use the Wood Blast attack to knock out that Greninja and draw onto another one of our prize cards. So it looks like we are going to win, guys. Unless our opponent can somehow perform a massive 2EX knockout. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. So let's go and get rid of that Frogadier. And thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. My apologies again if it was a little bit long, but I feel like you guys got a much better understanding of what this deck was supposed to do. Again, if you guys did enjoy this video, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you very much for watching.